Welcome back to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3. Nick Constantino and Trip Jobe here, and we're going to continue our conversation with Jaamy and Chef Giuseppe. So, Chef, you've been to a lot of places in the world, okay? So growing up in Italy, which culinary wine is just, it's like speaking. It's part of the language. It's part of the love languages of families. I remember growing up, my grandfather would literally sit with like the wine we have in front of us at 7 years old and just make me drink wine. And you're not drinking to get drunk. You're drinking because that is part of the family experience. And he's cooking all day and blah, blah, blah. So talk a little bit about Italy, talk about Australia, and then talk about kind of coming to the U.S. and what surprised you most, because I think that will set us up for the eclectic mix of cuisines that you guys have brought into Kitty Dare.
Yeah, so there are definitely like three very different places, like Italy, Australia, US. So I think the main difference probably, like as you said, is like in Italy, food and wine, they're really into the culture. You can drink, like, I remember being like 12 or 13, I have a little bit of like wine with water. But the food, in Italy, like there's this idea that like Italian food, it's so like uniform, just pizza and pasta and all of that, while like you move, if you're in any place in Italy, it's enough to move like 10 miles and like the food completely changes. All the typical products from the area, we're in Italy, and like in most of Europe, there are all these denominations like DOC, DOCG, EGT, GP. There are all these denominations that tells you, also with the wine, not just with the food, that tells you like that this product is being grown in this specific area with these specific methods.
Yeah, and some of it is famous now, right? We know that balsamic vinegar has got to be from Modena. It's got to be, there's certain of it, but that is everywhere. Everything is regionalized. Every kind of brand, like Parmesan cheese and Reggiano, all these things are regional parts that have just made their way into the lexicon, which is very different than this country and how we do things. Okay, so what about, one of the things I find, the spice palettes are so different, right? So everything is fresh herbs and Parmesan. It's not salt. American food is just loaded with salt. Italy, the herbs and the different flavors take more of the, is that something you noticed?
Yeah, definitely. It's, like Italy, for being such a small country, has a lot of different like expressions, like in the whole environment. There's the mountain, there's the desert, there's a lot of like sea. So this reflects on the food as well. Like there are many places, like many regions, like Liguria or close to the Apennine region. You can live, for example, on the mountain, or like if you're in the Marche or Liguria, you can live on the mountain, like drive 10 minutes and be on the sea. And those are very like interesting regions for me, especially because you can eat boar and then have seafood. So it's like. It's very, very diverse for being like such a small.
Wild boar is such a type. Rabbit and wild boar are the two things I always think about that I think I miss here that are delicious that you don't find here that often. What about Australia?
Australia like is similar like to the US. Like I would say, like to be like a young country. They have like their cuisine, I think, is mostly like a sort of like European mixed with a lot of like Asian fusion. Yeah. I think that surprised me. I really fell in love with Asian food, with especially like Thai food, Vietnamese food, Chinese, Japanese. Like, it's really good. Yeah. It's really good there. I work in a couple of Asian fusion restaurants. I really fell in love with that. I work with really great chefs from all the parts of Asia. Yeah, and
we're just starting to crack that also, because Thai food, you think Thai food, but there's 8 regions of Thailand that are different, and there's street food, and we're just starting to get to that point, at least here, where we're starting to wrap the layers back of those countries too, because like Italy, Thailand's a big freaking country with a lot of different people, with a lot of different religious and cultural influences, so I think that's the next phase of cuisine now. We're starting to unravel a lot of that.
Yeah, when I think of Australia too, just from a size perspective,
boomerangs and kangaroos,
there's a lot of difference. So it's you don't have that. I mean, there's cross-pollination, don't get me wrong, but there is very big differences in space and everything else between Melbourne and Sydney and Tasmania and some of the other areas. So that probably leads to some of the different influences, I would think, around Australia from a cuisine standpoint.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Also, Australia is famous for their, like, lamb like for their black Angus. So like there's a lot of barbecue.
Yeah.
A lot of, there's like, it's a big, good like mix.
Yeah.
I like my time there. I also like having fun and being like a backpacker and traveling, going hostels and living here like 6 months. Work there 3 months and then go for a road trip, do something.
And like you said, it's a very new country, so there's still so much part of it that's just completely untouched. So, real quick, what surprised you most about American cuisine when you got here?
Oh, definitely the variety. It's like there's so much. You can eat like Ethiopian one day, really good, and then you can go eat like Japanese, and then you can go eat like an Argentinian steakhouse.
Within like 3 blocks of each other.
3 blocks.
Yeah.
So
Buford Highway is a great example of that, I would say.
Oh, wow, I love the place.
It's amazing. So, all right, Jaamy, so we're going to go back to you now. So, one of the most important things about Kitty Dare and cuisine in general is the wine, and you have built your heritage and pedigree is wine being a big part of it. So, because it wouldn't be a good episode about food if we didn't have some wine in front of us, we have some. So, talk a little bit about the wine we have in front of us, and then talk a little bit about your experiences with wine and why it became so important to what you did with Kitty Dare and then hopefully in future restaurants.
So what we are tasting is Domaine Touraz. This is from Bekaa Valley in Lebanon, and it has Viognier and Chardonnay, which most people would know, but it also have Obeida, which is a native grape to Lebanon, and also have Muscat of Alexandria, again another local grape. Lebanon has 2 really famous grapes that are just native to Lebanon, and there's some over 50 wineries in Lebanon right now, all in Bekaa Valley area. Perhaps the most famous is the Chateau Moussar. Domaine Touraz is one of my favorites, really well priced, and both the red and the white drink beautifully. And we have both on the wine list at Kitty Dare. So my love of wine really started, believe it or not, when I was pretty young in Iran, and my parents used to drink wine with the meals. And previous to 1979 takeover and changing of the government, alcohol was legal in Iran, and my dad did his MD in Mumbai and pediatrics in London. So we always had alcohol in the house, and kind of like what Giuseppe was saying, that we always were allowed to have a little bit of wine to taste and a little bit of scotch, which we hated. So I had a passion with wine from a young age, and when I got to Southern Lights in Greensboro, I learned a lot from the GM there. And then when I got to Last Resort, it allowed me to expand the wine list. In 93, a year after it opened, we only had 10 wines on the list, and we ended up at some 150 wines by the time I was done with the wine program.
Wow, do you think that was the demand of there, or the fact that you were experimenting and people were getting more excited? Do you think that it was you were doing that because the market demanded it, or you were just pushing the envelope, and once you started getting, people just wanted more and more?
I think it was a combination of both. I think the demand had started. So many people that live in Athens travel internationally and to bigger cities. And also the fact that I felt like if we offered a really big by the glass wine program that would allow people to try different things that they normally wouldn't, and if the price was good and fair, then that would let them venture out. And then I translated that when I got to Kitty Dare, obviously in the designer wine program that's extremely difficult to manage, because there are 250 wines on the list, but everything we have is temperature controlled. So even the wines that are sitting out before they're served will go into either the white wine coolers or the red wine coolers. There's a reserve red wine cooler, and I think it's very important that restaurants concentrate on spending a little bit of money on just an average wine cooler for some of their high-end wines. And glassware, also very important.
Yeah, and so after tasting this, one of the things Lebanese food, and I love Lebanese food, it's a lot of spice. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of different things, and a lot of times when you drink like a Sauvignon Blanc, for example, it's so fruit forward that you're not going to taste a lot of the things. This wine is subtle. It's got some minerality to it that I think would go well with Lebanese food. Is that on purpose? Is that, you think, something that is just a happy coincidence? You picked it for a reason, but is this something you have to pick with some of the more intense dishes on the menu?
Exactly, right. So there are 34 countries that hit the Mediterranean, and they all have different cuisines. But our menu in particular, you know, I think some of the white wines we have really suit our menu, and I actually think white wine is so much easier to pair with food than red wine is. And we have a really diverse, large white wine program as well as red, but this is the typical wine that's perfect with our menu.
Yeah, and that stood out to me immediately when I was there.
Yeah, is that kind of the strategy to be able to make it easier to pair? The reason you have such a breadth of wine, or is it more just for general selection and maybe the perception that you've got a large body to choose from?
I think it's to give the customer, the clientele, an opportunity to try things they would not see in many other restaurants. And I think our pricing strategy really allows people to try something from, for example, we have a red from Armenia on our list, which is a fantastic bottle of wine. And I have to go back continuously to the pricing strategy. And that allows people to then say, if we're going to drink a Barolo, this is the restaurant we want to drink it at. At a restaurant. Right glassware, right temperature, very fair pricing, and so on and so forth. So the number of wines is because I would love for people to try as many different countries from Mediterranean.
And do you feel, and I don't want to say you're doing a service, but there are a lot of people who just stick to the same regions. They'll put a Spanish, a French, an Italian, and be done with it. Do you feel that you're giving due to countries who have worked hard at something and just haven't gotten the fair share of attention? I know, for example, we have a wine club, and I get a Georgian wine from the country Georgia, and it is one of my favorite wines all the time. Now, I don't know if I'm going to go trot across the world to go to Georgia to go to their wine region, but I know that I completely changed my perception immediately just by trying that wine. So is it something that you find rewarding, that you enjoy opening up people's palates and stuff like that? Is it something that you find rewarding?
Absolutely. I think Cabernet and Chardonnay are wonderful, but there are so many different varietals out there from so many different countries, and we've just scratched the surface. I mean, Eastern Europe, there are so many countries. Republic of Georgia, as you were talking about, is now known to have the oldest artifacts of wine in the world. It used to be Iran, the old Persian Empire, but now the latest was found in Georgia. So Eastern Europe is making tremendous wine all over the Mediterranean, all over the world. So many countries make wine that people just don't know. And there are great varietals that no one's heard of before. In particular, for example, in Corsica, the varietals are very difficult to pronounce, but the wines are wonderful. Same as Sardinia. If you ask someone in Corsica where they're from, they don't say France. They'll say, I'm Corsican. Sardinians don't say we're part of Italy. They say we're Sardinians. So, and of course, Sicily now in Italy has become such a hot region for wine. But my goal was to just give incredible variety and let people venture out.
I love it. And I think I want to get to how you market that, because this is a hell of a story. It's unique. You're doing so much for so many people. We got to talk how to market it. Before we get to that, though, let's go back to Chef. Let's talk about the dishes. So when I ate one of the things, and please punch me in the face if I'm wrong, but I had the eggplant dish, and to me, as growing up Greek and Italian, to me it tasted like a nice mix of baba ganoush and eggplant parm. It had the richness and it was cooked down, but it had the sauce from the eggplant parm. So I tasted those two dishes and then a little of a yogurt sauce on top. I tasted those two dishes. Talk about how you approach the menu and how you combine these Mediterranean cuisines into these dishes, because I think it's pretty unique.
Yeah, basically what I did is just taking the best expressions of every Mediterranean region, or at least the one that we like the best, and just blending it all together. Just do a real fusion of it. If you see the menu, you see like a dish like the Tunisia eggplant, the one you had, and cooked out like a fried eggplant with an harissa sauce we make in house. That kind of reminds maybe something like an eggplant parm, but with a little more spices instead of just tomatoes. There's a lot of bell pepper, Fresno chilies, coriander, cumin.
Yeah, and that's where I got the baba ganoush, which it's typically colder, but it has a lot more going on than eggplant parm does.
So basically that's what we did. Just take the best expressions and just blend it together. Some dish, I don't know, we got this crispy rice dish. There is basically kind of deconstructed paella with a little bit of a Persian crispy saffron rice.
Love it.
Or our gnocchi dish. Gnocchi, for example, is a very Italian dish, but put turmeric in the dough with some black garlic and mint labneh, a lamb ragu on top, instead of like a
that was
bolognese.
that was wonderful, and it hit me because most people are afraid to mix the density of the gnocchi with the richness of it, but it came together, and you had a little acid in there really to break it up a little bit.
A little acid with some charred tomatoes.
It was wonderful. How often are you doing specials? Are you changing the menu seasonally? What do the next couple of months look like for you?
So we usually change the menu once a season.
Okay.
So I would say like 3 to 4 times a year.
Yep.
The main menu. Then run special every now and then. But the thing that we really like to do, I'm sure Jaamy will talk about it. We do these wine dinners.
Yeah.
So basically, Jaamy takes some appointments with all the sales rep that he knows.
Yeah.
The wine reps, and basically they set us up with like 6, 7, 8 wine to taste.
Sure.
So we have a fun like 30 minutes, taste all the wine, and then I come up with a menu paired with each.
So on the
glass
fly,
of wine.
you drink something and then you're putting it in a
we
menu.
discuss together.
Cool.
Obviously Jaamy helps me more with the notes. With the notes that he feels in the wine, how it tastes, what's like, and I come up with a menu paired to each one glass. And then for like, usually it's once a month. We've been doing like once, twice a month. We do this wine dinner, which is a set menu with 5-6 courses, with 5-6 different kind of wine. And so that's instead of maybe a running special every time you have that night, that you have a whole completely different menu paired.
And the demand for that is insane. People want those experiences. That's the experience.
That's what I was going to say. It's not just going out to dinner. You're going out to an event. You're really having
But I like that you're trying to be multiple things to multiple people, because not everybody wants to go out and spend 3 hours eating 6 courses and spending $250. Like, you can go and you have that neighborhood feel where it's like a little bistro where you can go with your kids popping out. It's kid friendly. So most times you say kid friendly and 7-course tasting menus, those things don't go together. But there were kids there. It's a good mix. So let's get to the marketing part. So for me, the biggest part of a restaurant, and what people usually fail at, Karen, cover your ears, they're so worried about the initial loss and about the initial launch and the release and the grand opening that they forget regulars are the only thing that matters in the restaurant industry. If you don't have regulars coming in every day, the restaurants never succeed. And again, one of the things growing up, I grew up in Queens in New York, and Queens is as much of a restaurant town, and it's all regulars. There are Greek restaurants that have been there for 40 years, and they will not change one single thing. If you say, I want it cooked the way, like, you will not have it cooked a certain way. They just do it the exact same way. But it felt like it was built to be part of the community in which you're there, and it's enough for the people around there. You want to serve them first. You want people to come in from all over the place, of course, but I felt like you were at least serving your community first. Did you think about that when you went into it, and is that part of your marketing message?
Always. So when you open in a neighborhood, you need to be a neighborhood restaurant. And by that I mean, for example, we have the best high chairs that I've seen in any restaurant.
I swear to God, I was like, oh my God, I've never in my life thought I should bring my kids somewhere. I'm like, get them the hell away from me. Yeah. But in this instance, I feel like I should have brought my kids.
And we have a kids menu named after Stella, Giuseppe's daughter. And it's very small, but that's exactly what they want. Mac and cheese, pasta with butter. We have sometimes, if we have the bolognese sauce, you get a pasta with the bolognese sauce.
And that's not easy. That's breaking up
Right.
the kitchen's day to make a kid's menu. So people understand it's not just as easy as making spaghetti. Like, you got to completely set aside assets of the kitchen to do that.
It helps if your chef has a daughter who's 3 years old. I would say.
My son's 3. There you go.
And I think that
I got Luca. You got Estella.
Oh, all right.
Young couples, I think it's very unfair for them to have to get a babysitter to go and have dinner. We want to be a restaurant where you feel comfortable going once or twice a week. Bring your children, go to brunch there. Know that we have high chairs. Know that no one at my restaurant, not a single server, is going to roll their eyes when they see 3 kids on high chairs. That's important to be part of the community, and also getting involved in a school next to us and nonprofit in our community is also super important. And a couple of causes that are more national or unique to Atlanta. I think all of that was so important that, that's what a community restaurant is. Do things for your community and they become regulars. You want your regulars to be either in your community mostly, but also we have people that come from Roswell, mostly because Giuseppe's mother-in-law lives in Roswell, and she doesn't come by herself. She brings a dozen people with her always, who are not kind of regulars.
Yeah.
And
but well, tell us where Kitty Dare is, what community, and what's the feedback been from the community so far?
Kitty Dare is located at 1029 Edgewood Avenue Northeast, which is the heart of Inman Park. Right by the MARTA station, there is the former one-year stag. The building itself has a big history. Deacon Burton was the first restaurant. We actually found the original sign in the attic, and we have a picture of Deacon Burton himself on the side of the office wall. Then it became the patio, very popular. Sean's for about 3 years, and then 1 year stag, and now us for about 2.5, coming on 3 years. And I just think it's the most stunning building. I was always in love with that building. And I actually was sitting at Echo on 7 a few years ago, and I was telling the bartender, if I ever do a restaurant in Atlanta, I would like to do it where Sean's is. And then they go, oh, he's not renewing their lease. And I go, oh my God, I would love that building. And the guy 7 bar stools down goes, oh, I just signed a lease. That's going to be my new restaurant called One Year Stag. And it was a Scottish gentleman, and it was a British lady, and then there was the chef. The 3 opened it about 10, 12 years ago. But it's ironic that we went around a decade, and then we ended up back.
Yeah, it's amazing. What other? So again, it's a crowded space. They're opening restaurants every day. There's so many are similar. I will give you guys credit to begin with. It is a different place. It feels different when you walk in. The cuisine is different. The attention to wine is different. Even my interaction with the server was different. Everyone cares. That is clear. However, how do you get the message across to people? Because what they see is this restaurant open. We have to go. How are you getting your message out there? Besides your wonderful PR people, how are you getting the message out there? How are you? Is the goal just to get everybody in once and make sure it's the best damn experience ever to keep them coming back? How do you approach that? You've been in many restaurants. How do you approach it? And it's got to be different than Italy because they don't market in Italy. They just have community places that people kind of pop into.
Yeah.
How do you what does your marketing look like?
Well, previous to working with our marketing firm, we're not even over a month old yet, I believe. We just try to be really nice to customers. My motto about service and food is, treat people that you're waiting on like you want to be treated when you go to a restaurant. And you normally can judge customers whether they want to talk to you or they don't want to talk to you. Check back with them, feel them out, and go from there and make sure that the food is satisfactory, that you're nice to your table, and know your menu, know your wine list so you can make appropriate suggestions. And I think we've done that really well. But we were sitting there wondering about 2.5 years later, why was it that we weren't getting busy? And I eat out in Atlanta all the time, some of the top popular restaurants. And I was baffled. Of course, I'm about to turn 66, so social media is a bit foreign to me. I'm sort of a Facebook person. I haven't moved much past Facebook.
Yeah, it's all poison.
My lovely
unless you're marketing something.
And my comptroller, Jules here, suggested Karen's company and said that they eat at Kitty Dare and they love coming to Kitty Dare, and maybe we should look into talking to them about possibility of them representing us. And we sat down, and it was a great interaction. And of course, a number of the young ladies that worked for them went to Georgia, so there was a connection already there.
So there was a comfort level. So
and I must say that they've done wonders for us.
Yeah. Well, when we come back from the break, I want to dive into that, some of the successes and how that's been played out. And you're listening to the Marketing Mad Men.
$100 now for saying it.
And we've been listening to the Marketing Mad Men on Extra 106.3. We'll be right back.